Hello, and welcome back to Quantitative Reasoning Online. Starting a new learning plan 7, with lesson 16 being the first in that learning plan. So with no further waiting, let's go look at lesson 16A. And it's an education page tutorial, and we have 3 questions at completion. And let's see, we're going to look at bar graphs and creating absolute and relative changes. So this would be a review of a concept, and this would be just exercise in graph reading. All right. Let you read this on your own. Basically, we're going to look at some new concepts, look at some old concepts, look at histograms, and should get you ready for doing the workbook for 16A. Okay, so we have looks like a graph here. It's categorical because these are categories in which we just did a count of people who worked at home between 15 and 24, people who worked at home 25 to 34, people who worked at home 35 to 44. So we looked at people who worked at home, and there was n of them. Don't know if n is 100, n is 1,000. Go from the categories. Category 1, here's category 1, category 2, category 3, and so forth, and just did a count. And so forth. Now, note we have percentages, okay, which means for category 1, they took how many there were in that category divided by total number of looked at times 100%, and that gave us a percentage. All right. One thing you should look at when you see a percentage chart is check, do they add to 100%? Otherwise, something may be missing. So let's look. We have a 5% here. I'm going to call that 14.5. Let's call that 22.5. 27, 21, and 10, roughly. Let's add them up. 5, 14.5, 22.5, 21, and 10. So 0, carry the 1, 5, 1, 6, 10, 12, 19, 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yep. Adds up to 100. They gave all the data, they used all the data. Okay, so let's look at this guy. Let's go back where we create those numbers. 5, 14.5, 22.5, 27, 21, and 10. And they want how many at home work between ages 15 and 24. That looks like 5%. Okay. Ages 25 to 44. 25 to 34, 35 to 44. So they're really asking for the composite of those two numbers, them to add it up. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, Looks about 37%. 15 to 44. Whoa. All three of those numbers, all three of those categories combined. %. 45 and older. 45 and over. 27, 21, 10, 8, 2, 4, 5. And then 45 to 64, which are these two numbers, which is 48. How we do? So it's about 5. That checks. About 37. Check. 42. Check. 58. Check. And 48. Check. Okay. So either read these questions or the range of values being asked for, because it may go over multiple categories. Common source of error. Okay, for the question, the following screen, determine which the statements are true or false, given the information. All right. Most people who work at home are younger than 45. So we're looking for younger than 45, which means 44 and less. And and it should also be greater than 50% to be the majority. We're going to have a 5% plus 14.5% plus 22.5%. And that would be 0 carry the 1, 2, 3, 4 is 7, and 5 is 12. Carry the 1, 2, 3, 4. 42%. 42% is not greater than 50%. False. There are more people between 55 and 64-year-old who work at home than people between 15 and 24. So 55 and 64, 15 and 24. There are more. So should be these guys, the numbers on the left should add up to be less than numbers on the right. So 14.5 and 5 is 19.5, and is that less than 37? Yes. Because these percentages for 15 to 34 is less than 55 and over. Oh, read it wrong. 55 and 64. I mean, them guys. still, that's 21, which is still bigger than 19.5, so the answer is still yes. I read it too quickly, and I saw 2 categories here, and I want to see 2 categories there. You can convince yourself if you're not careful. Okay, as people get older, they tend to stop working at home. As people get older, they tend to stop working at home. Okay, this is a trick question. This is a trick question. Okay. Because what we're seeing here on the graph is a snapshot of today. Not looking at we're not looking at 1,000 people over the course of 50 years. So it's not that we're not looking at the population as it ages. We're looking at the snapshot. So the question here is, as people get older, so this is looking at aging, which is what these little jumps are. Okay. What we have here is a picture of, okay, today, if you're 55 to 64, you're about 21% of you work at home. Today, the 1,000 people I looked at, or what people I looked at, 15 and looked at the 15 to 24 categories, about 5% worked at home. It's not saying that as time goes on that this shape of the graph won't change. I mean, shoots, in 10 years, now this may be the 55 to 64 group, and this may be the 65 and over group. We don't know. So, gotta be careful on what's being asked. So as people go, they tend to stop working at home. False. It's because of the way the question is worded, how the question is worded, and what the graph is showing. Again, the graph is a snapshot of society now, not as what happens to a person as we get older. That makes sense. Okay, about 15% of all people between 25 and 34 years old work at home. So 15 to 34, about 14.5%, which is about 15%. Okay. But again, this is, you gotta look at the graph. What is this? This is about 15% of at-home workers. Okay, 50% of at-home workers. So these are people who are already working at home that we looked at. The question is 50% of all people, basically population. The graph is showing of people who are known to work at home. Of this population, some work at home and some don't. So this has got to be false. Again, you got to read how the question's worded. How the question's worded and what the graph is displaying. Very, very subtle points and concepts there. For any statements that you marked as false, record justification notebook in the class. That's nice. Okay, in 1997, 4.8% of workers identified themselves as home workers. In 2010, 6.6% of workers. In 2020, I think that number is going to be up even more. Okay, find the absolute change. So remember, the absolute change is 1997, 2010, 4.8%, 6.6%. Come on, let's turn on. All right. And changes, okay. What happened between here and here? Well, we're at 6.6%. I was at 4.8%. And that difference absolutely is 1.8%. It's the new minus the old equals percent absolute change. So 1.8%. Okay. Now find the percentage of workers who the relative change in percentage. Okay, relative change, recall, is absolute change over basically the old. What are we coming from? So relative change should be 1.8 over 4.8. Because here's our absolute change. And where do we start from? We start from 4.8. divided by 4.8 is 0.375. Then we multiply that by 100%. 37.5%. $9 sign. Here we go. Yep, there we go. Okay. Percent. And let's see. How confident you read data from a bar graph? I'm real confident. And calculate absolute relative change, yeah. So, read data, calculate change. That's all she wrote. So, that concludes the tutorial for Education Pays. And once you go back and relook at those graphs and convince yourself about how I read them and how I interpret some of them, and for yourself. And with that, I'll see you shortly for lesson 16A, preview questions 1, 2, 3.